Good morning, Havering Means Business members. Chris here. Welcome to this morning commute. It's the 5th of March 2021. We're going to start letting people in the meeting room. I want to start off, normally we start off every meeting with a little icebreaker. And I was just saying to our guest who's speaking today, Tony, that I'm in a situation where this week, for a variety of reasons, has probably been my busiest week for about a year. So I'm really looking forward to a relaxing weekend. I'm just going to sort of take some time to relax. So what I'll do is I'll go round and start having a bit of a conversation with people with the starting point. What do you do to relax? And hello, Carol, how are you? And the first person I'm gonna start with is Leslie. And the only reason I'm starting with you, Leslie, is because I'm hoping that my conversation starter this week is better than the one I asked you a couple of weeks ago. So how do you relax?
Two things. I read. So I read sort of a variety of novels. So I curl up on the sofa with a book and I disappear for hours. But I sing as well. I'm in a choir, and that is just amazing.
You know what? I mean, it's funny because I know about that choir because we interviewed the choir leader for the podcast I run on kindness. And I've been a bit of a secret stalker of the work you're doing. It's amazing, isn't it? I love it. The YouTube
he's amazing. He is absolutely amazing. He's kept us all going through the whole of lockdown.
Is there an intention post lockdown to go out and sing live? Because I was thinking,
oh God, yes. Can't wait.
Yeah. And is
that's why it's called Busketeers, because we want to go and busk. Yeah.
Sounds amazing. And I mean, 40k for charity in a year, 40k plus now.
While we're online.
While you can't go out live and do it is brilliant. What book are you reading at the moment?
The Girl from Nowhere.
Okay. And what's it about? Is it a thriller? Is it?
No, it's a science fantasy book.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. All right, amazing. Thanks, Leslie. Appreciate that. Carol, we could talk about running all day, couldn't we? Is running your relaxation, or is there other stuff you do?
I don't know if it's relaxing, is it? Yes. It's a chance to get out of the house on your own, isn't it? And think about stuff. So I guess it can be relaxing. It's away from the work, it's away from the kids.
Yeah, it's a bit more
relaxing.
We want
to get away from our kids.
I wouldn't mind every now and again. If it's the last day of homeschooling today, though, that's what I'm looking forward to. So that's good. But yeah, running is I mean, again, I've only been out once this week because I've been busy, but it just allows you. It is a form of meditation to a certain extent, isn't it? What else do you do apart from running?
We've got into a bit of unshaming time to ourselves, snuggling up on the sofa, watching Richard Osman's House of Games after dinner every night, and we just feel like a couple of old retirees, but we absolutely love it. It's just
House of Games, especially on the telly. I
absolutely love it.
Funny enough, I've just finished a couple of weeks ago Richard Osman's novel, Thursday Night Murder Club. And it is very, very, very good. It's a story about some older people in an old people's home who solve murders. And it's just very clever, very smart, worth reading.
And there's an audio version on BBC Sounds.
There is, yeah, there is. You know what, BBC Sounds, I'm loving at the minute. I've got Barack Obama's book on my bookshelf. I haven't read it, but on BBC Sounds, they've got Barack Obama narrating it. So it's like, it's all pretty good. So yeah, really good. Who should we go to next? Paul, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Very well, thank you. Excuse me. He's coughing there.
So before we start talking about business, tell me what you do to relax.
I do a range of things, really. I try to do a bit of walking, and I'm doing the couch to 5K thing at the moment. So gradually building up to that.
How's it going?
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, I feel a bit exhausted after each one, but you feel good. Lots of showers afterwards. Try to get out in the garden when I can, because that's just getting out in the fresh air, doing things is quite good. And Yeah, reading, and also my son's staying with at the moment. So we watch an episode of Billions every night. Everybody's seen that? Damian Lewis. It's
you know what? It's not one I've got into. I've heard good things about it, but
yeah, it's quite sharp.
Paul Giamatti as well. Isn't
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's very well done. So, yeah, it's a bit of mixing it all up really, and a bit of cooking as well. That's quite good.
Yeah, what do you cook?
But anything really. We do lots of, sort of standard things. I make soups and stuff for batch cooking, and then we experiment with unusual things as well. So
I did an online cooking lesson with my youngest daughter a couple of weeks ago, and literally the kitchen was an absolute mess when we're done. But it was great. It was great fun. It was great fun. Good stuff. Thanks, Paul. Appreciate that. Kevin, how are you? And morning, mate. What do you do to relax?
Mainly, well, we're doing walking at the moment. Last year or so is coming a lot more. We do a choir on a Monday night, a round table 41 club choir. So
that's good fun.
Yeah,
what sort of, because we've got Leslie's part of the choir, what sort of songs do you sing in the choir?
Round table next October's, mate. It's mainly a red wine one. We're an interruption choir once a year, but it's no stretch all year. But
yeah,
it's good fun. It's 6, 7 of us who've got every Monday during lockdown. We've got mixing whatever, and it's very good on that. And watching sport generally. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, sounds good. I'm just wondering how many glasses of red wine it takes to get involved in the choir. I'm not even going to go there on that.
Only a couple when it's remote, mate. Slow down when it's remote.
All right, good stuff. Andy, morning. How are you? I mean, I know what you do to relax. You hit the decks, don't you?
I do, sir. But it's funny because good morning, everyone. It's nice to see so many familiar faces. No, it's really crazy. I've almost got like a side career that's taken off in the last few months. And I've been DJing off and on for 30 years. And I had this burning desire to be a broadcaster. And I really thought the opportunity had passed me by, being 53 now. But last November it was now, an internet soul music radio station came in for me and they interviewed me and I was offered a slot and I took this slot and I did 2 weeks and then succumbed to the virus. And I couldn't broadcast for literally, I think it was 3 weeks. I had no voice. I couldn't do anything. And I was really laid out, but I came back and I was really worried that I'd lost that momentum that I'd already begun with the first 2 weeks of the show. But no, I was wrong. I've gathered the momentum really quickly because I've been furloughed and I've been very quick. I've been very clever here, people, because my name is Furno. So I called my show the Andy Furlow Show. So, and what I've done is I've been covering a show on a Tuesday as well. So I've been running my Monday night show and a Tuesday afternoon show. And I can be really proud to say that the station broadcast me the figures this week, the listening figures. And God, if I say it myself, I'm blowing all the other DJs out the park. So I'm really, really, really chuffed. Something that I had this burning desire to do, and I've applied myself, and it's just fantastic. And
love it.
As an old guy, I'm even learning how to upload things to Mixcloud now. So I have a Mixcloud account. People can go and listen to my shows. Well, there's one there at the moment, but we'll get there.
Yeah, amazing stuff. Yeah, that's good. I mean, I'm a little younger than you, Andy, but I've got Russ to help me out with all the technical stuff. I just go. My technical expertise is just going to Russ. Can you just sort that out for me? And he seems to do it, as you know, with the podcast. So yeah, all good stuff. Gemma, morning. How are you? And what do you do to relax?
I don't really get to relax. I've got a 4-year-old. How do you relax when you've got a 4-year-old? He was up at 4 o'clock this morning. So it's one of those things where you kind of go to bed by about 8, 9 o'clock at night. So I've about 2 hours to binge watch rubbish on the telly and then I go to bed.
What are you watching at the minute?
I was watching Married at First Sight Australia. I'm not going to lie. So
I've got a confession, right? I'm not a fan of reality TV.
Yes, you are.
But Cassie was watching Married at First Sight Australia. I became a bit obsessed for 2 weeks, Gemma. It is 3 weeks. It was it was a bit compelling, and we could talk about Mike and Heidi and all that sort of stuff. I'm not even going to do that. But it is very compelling TV. I mean, it is. What series you on?
Well, the one that's just finished. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm a bit bereft now, Gemma. It's gone off. I don't know what to do with myself
now.
Yeah, wait for the next series to come on. Thanks, Gemma. I appreciate that. Tracy, how you doing?
Hi, Chris. All right, thank you.
Good. And what do you do to relax?
Gardening. I'm with Paul on that one. I absolutely love gardening. People say I'm a bit young for that, but I'm like, nah. The air, the greenery, being away from the children, just getting away the dead and seeing the new growth come up. It's just wonderful.
Yeah. Being oh, thank you. I've just been delivered a smoothie, which is good.
Nice.
Well, is it vanilla and
vanilla, cherries, apple, kale, and coconut?
Vanilla, cherries, apple, kale, and coconut. That's a
mix.
Combination.
Go on, let's do it then, Chris.
I'll do it in a minute. Right, let me have an initial off-air taste, and then we'll see how we get on. But okay, yeah, but that getting in green space is important, isn't it?
It's lovely. Lovely.
How often do you garden?
I try to get out there at least once a week. So last Saturday, because it was beautiful weather, I was out there for the entire day. Almost broke me physically. But
it's quite labour intensive, isn't it? You can, yeah.
I was proper aching. So yeah, it was great. But before I go, Andy, could you tell us the station that you play on?
Sure. I'm going to sound like an advert now. www.soulbeat-radio.com. That's Soulbeat Radio. Soulbeat Radio. But for those of us that live in Essex, okay, if you're doing it on your Alexa, you have to pronounce that T. So you say, Alexa, play Soulbeat Radio via TuneIn.
Good stuff. Thanks, Andy. Appreciate that. And thanks, Tracy. Clive, how are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, Chris. You?
Yeah, good. Yeah, pretty good. As I said at the start of the meeting, I've had a massively busy week, which is why I'm looking forward to relaxing. So, apart from walking around various parts of Hornchurch where we often bump into each other, how do you relax?
My real passion is paddle sports. I do a lot of canoeing, kayaking. When we can, my club's closed at the moment because of the lockdown. But
where'd you go?
So this year I've only been out a couple of times. I'm a member of the Bark and Dagenham Canoe Club. So we've got one place on the Dagenham, and we've got another place over Gorsbrook Park. So if anyone wants to come along, it's I think it's about £10 a session. And this year I'm learning. I'm going to become an instructor as well. So I had a break from it for about 25 years, as you do when you have families and things. And I did it when I was younger. And then, kind of families and businesses getting away and you give these things up. And then, I kind of got to that stage where the kids are off hand. So I went back to it and, kind of really got into it. That and cycling, I do a lot of cycling.
Yeah, I haven't done it for about 20 years, but last year between lockdown 1 and lockdown 2, I took my youngest kayaking a couple of times, and we went to a place down in Kent, but then 2 or 3 times we went to Docklands Water Sports Centre, the one in just by Canary Wharf. And it does feel strange kayaking with Canary Wharf there. Do you know what I mean? It's a bit of a weird experience, but quite cathartic just paddling around on the river, on the water.
Yeah, it's very. If anyone's interested, one of our clients, they do the trip they go from Battersea down to Greenwich.
Down the Thames.
It takes about 2 to 3 hours down the Thames, on like a double kayak, or actually, yes, double kayak. It's really worth doing. I did it a couple of years ago. But it's very, unless you kind of, only people that ever really go in is if people are trying to take a selfie on it. That's the only time people ever go in. So just don't take pictures, because they kind of they put the phone one way and lean the other. Yeah,
but kayaking down the Thames sounds like a pretty decent experience, right?
Really is good. Yeah. We get out into the Thames, from the Rodin. We can go. It's a subsidiary of the Thames, so we can get out onto the Thames. be really careful sometimes the boats and the weather. Some, if it's rough, you do get rough rough water on the Thames, so you have to be careful. But it's good.
Amazing. Yeah, no, sounds really good. Yeah, sounds really good fun. Thanks, Clive.
There's a caving club right in the middle of Chelmsford, and they play some kind of game there where they're all throwing things around.
Yeah.
Well, we do that kind of thing with the kids. We get money across the front of the boats. And, it's no good for me because I would go into that kind of stuff. But I think as you get older, your sense. I was honestly, my sense of balance now is dreadful, really. But I just think I'm on this age sometimes.
Yeah, no, it's
good.
Yeah, Clive. Next time we have a Havering Means Business event, we'll have to see you do that, mate. I mean, that sounds like good fun to me. Andrew, how are you?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you.
And what do you do to relax?
Oh, it's a good question. Well, when gyms were open, I did go to the gym because I find taking it out on inanimate objects is a good way of relaxing.
Yeah.
I did
go. Are you finding you're carrying on during lockdown? Are you doing a lot of Zoom classes? Or anything like that?
I find it very difficult to motivate on my own.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep active, but during the week it's difficult when you're out of the house for about 12 hours a day. Coming back, you don't really feel like doing anything. But weekends, I get out and about, walking and what have you.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. So you're glad that we've got a route out of lockdown, and it looks like we can get back to a sense of normality.
Yeah, definitely. So you can get back to the gym and start throwing some weights around. That'll be good.
Yeah, and it helps with the stress, doesn't it? If you've had a long, hard day.
It is a good stress release, yeah, very much so.
Good stuff. And last but definitely not least, Tony, what do you do to relax?
Good morning, everyone. Well, it used to be playing sport, now it's watching sport. But pretty much everything on Sky Sports or BT Sport that happens beyond when I can get near the TV rather than when the kids are watching reality TV. But
yeah, well, the challenge you've got is just getting them to change the channel, right, Tony? Yeah. I don't win in my house. I'm sort of that's the reason I've watched Married at First Sight, because I haven't got a choice. All right, that's the story I'm sticking to. Yeah. What are you watching at the minute, sports wise?
Well, I watch all the West Ham games, which is a bit of a benefit this year. But no, the Test match at the moment, and pretty much anything that's rugby, cricket, football, or golf related, I'll watch.
Yeah.
But I'm lucky enough to live sort of within pretty much a stone's throw of Epping Forest, so do quite a lot of walking, but not quite going in the forest at the moment because it's so wet. But try and get in the forest when I can do. So.
Well, my typical, because we've got the county park at the back of us, my typical running route is around the county park, but half of it's been flooded. I mean, it's literally just dried out the last couple of weeks. And I suppose Epping Forest is similar, right? It's just,
very muddy in there at the moment, and the nature reserves there. But I think, because I live in Loughton, I found in the last year, I wasn't doing any walking at all this time last year, but I've got into it and tried to do sort of, I was getting into it in the summer, doing it most nights, and now it's like sort of most weekends. But walking around the streets, what I found fascinating is I've lived in Loughton for 30 years, and there's parts of Loughton that I never knew existed. I'm just going around, and the younger daughter and I, when we were walking around last year, we're finding that let's do a different route, or what's up there.
Just exploring. Yeah.
And 2 nature reserves that we didn't know were there. We found a park, or a sort of a field, playing field we didn't know existed. And also the farmers, for the routes through the farmers' fields and around the farmers' fields, so which are paths as well. So managed to walk from sort of Loughton to Thaden one day, and Loughton to Weybridge one day, just through the fields, which was interesting.
I think it's interesting. Typically, pre-lockdown, a lot of us, including me, have Route 1. I've got to get from there to there, and I think that sort of people walking around during lockdown has been a bit. Well, let's explore, and let's see what environment's like.
And the walking, I think it's an interesting one. I did, because apart from work, I used to do a lot of travelling. So we've got quite a lot of clients up north, but I did 14,000 business miles in 2019. I did less than 2,000 in 2020.
Yeah. Yeah, and talking sport, I mean, I know that you say you used to play sport, but we did have a game over at Upton Park a few years ago, didn't we? And that when Upton Park closed, that was amazing fun. Just, I mean, I'm not the greatest footballer in the world, but just playing on the hallowed ground was amazing fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. Thanks, Tony. Appreciate that. Right, let's talk a bit of business then, and we'll start with Leslie. So, Leslie, tell us a little bit about you and a little bit about what's going on in your business at the minute.
Well, firstly, thanks, Carol. We had a great one-to-one. It's nearly 2 weeks ago now. Time flies. And I also had a great one-to-one with Sharon. Oh, she's not in today, but there you go. But yeah, I do reputation marketing. So some people call it content marketing. In other words, I write stuff, but I write stuff with purpose. So I have a small team, and between us, we do social media, we do blogs, newsletters, we write content for people's websites, and our focus is always on the reader. So it's the customer that you're trying to attract. It's not about you, it's about them. And I have a strong allergy to the word we. And there's a guy who is called Guy, actually, Guy Levine, who I was on a tele-seminar, so that might tell you how long ago that was, who coined the phrase, I hate websites that have been weed all over. And absolutely agree with that. So I do sort of tend to reposition whatever text there is so that it's all about the reader. And that's what I do. However, this last couple of weeks, I seem to spend half my life looking at spreadsheets. Now, anybody who knows me will know that me and numbers are a dangerous mix because I'm really rubbish at numbers. But these aren't spreadsheets with numbers on. These are spreadsheets with social media plans on. So we've got the content, we've got the links, we've got the images, we've got umpteen different platforms, because we're doing more and more social media stuff for our clients. So we like to plan ahead a little bit, and we've got themes that go through it. So you've got, you know, some of the posts are business corporate, they're presenting the company and promoting. Some of them are influencer posts, some of them are just general quote of the week type of things, with
a combination of that.
Yeah. So there's a good mix, and it's engaging. So that's the sort of thumbnail of what we do.
I think you make an interesting point, and I know it's something that Tony's going to be covering off a bit later on, but effectively all businesses are there to serve, aren't they? They're there to, whatever we do, we're there to serve our clients and customers. And we're probably guilty of this at Savello. Sometimes we get lost in our own stuff, when in actual fact our clients and customers care about what we can do for them. So what's the process in terms of helping people get to that point?
I did a LinkedIn live on this week as an interviewee rather than the interviewer. So there's one on LinkedIn somewhere for about 20 minutes. But basically, if we can get the customer to buy into it, and not all of them do, we try and walk them through the ideal client profile. Because it sounds easy, but actually,
avatar. Yeah,
absolutely. People are really, they say, oh yeah, it's accountants. No, it's not. It's a particular type of accountant. So you have to think about the specifics, what that person looks like, what drives them, what their sort of personal style is, what keeps them awake at night. And then why you, what's in it for me, for the client, what do you deliver to them, where they hang out, the tools that are available to influence them and, build your relationship with them, and also, establish a reputation. And then finally, what I call means, manpower and measurement, which is, who does what, when and how, and how do you work out if it's
the practicalities of it, right? Yeah, gotcha. Okay, that's really, really good. Thanks, Leslie. I really appreciate that. Kevin, talk to me about what's going on in your world.
Right, well, this week's been an interest week. We are starting to get more and more on remortgages of lifetime mortgage periods. It's down a position where clients are realising interest rates have been low. They're starting to creep up. That's good news, because as you're probably aware, gilts are taking quite a quick rise in the last week or so with rates. So that's now enhancing lower early repayment charges. We're saving people go from 5-6% down to about 3-2.5%. So it's another new style we're doing. Alongside the remortgage, we're doing a lot of divorce work, and we're doing nicely off gifting, house deposits, whatever. Even with the government's 95% scheme, you start looking, if you do put in 15, 20%, 25% for the family, you're making a big difference. That's the main type of life thing we're doing at the moment. Yeah,
great stuff. And it's interesting, Kevin, because last night I did a webinar to a sort of decent sized financial institution. Their senior managers. We've got a partner who delivers financial education, and we went on and did the technical side, and there was an element on inheritance tax planning, and potentially the conversation went down the road of, if I've got money locked up in my property and I don't want to move, how do I release that? And certainly we talked a little bit about lifetime mortgages, because that might be a potential solution to the problem, mightn't it?
Well, at the moment, it's a tax-free solution to take out your pension pot. I know we've always, lots of people said save pension, but when you get to the position, you may have a surplus amount and you've got a house asset. It's like an asset. It's like a pension. It's the same asset. Guaranteed to live there for the rest of your life, and you can draw down. So very similar and very tax effective for people.
Yeah, getting the balance right. It's interesting. What did you think of the budget this week?
Same minute. We could have been a lot worse, to be honest with you. I feel slightly unfair for him today with a knock of 1% rise within HS. Yes, we'd love to give it a lot more, but we're in a pandemic, we're in a restricted cash scenario. I think he's done it delicately by freezing allowances. I think it could have been a lot worse. And corporation tax, 6%. Personally, I think that's quite fair in 2 years' time. I was surprised. I was expecting a little bit harder pill. I still feel we're giving a lot of money away, but rates are so cheap from Sporra.
It's funny. I was expecting capital gains tax to go up, and it didn't. But corporation tax was the one that was interesting to me, because number one, it's going to be a bit painful for our business, but also number two, it also makes pensions more attractive for business owners. So there's like the pros and cons of it, isn't it? Yeah.
Carry forward might wait a couple of years and suddenly have a big one in 2 or 3 years' time.
Well, exactly. Yeah. If you could save 25% plus your dividends or income getting it out of the business, actually pensions look really, really good then. So yeah, pros and cons in everything. Let's go with my boxes have changed at the top, so have I done already? Let's go with Clive. Clive, what's going on in your world business wise?
Yeah, we're always busy. I'm standing in today for Simon. I'm from the East London Business Place. We are a business support program funded by Havering Council and various other councils. We're doing a lot of, I'm doing a lot of grant applications for businesses into council. And there's still grants out there for businesses that are struggling. So if you are looking for advice on that, please give me a call or Simon a call. We're doing a lot of training. I put 2 training courses onto the website this morning, onto the Havering Means Business website. We've got one on marketing next week on the 3rd. And on Wednesday about manage change and how to control projects. They're all funded. The woman that's doing marketing is one of my clients over in Greenwich, and she's got a very good pedigree in marketing. She did work and still works on contracts for Saatchi & Saatchi. She was one of her clients. So she's quite a high pedigree. She really knows what she's talking about. Now sort of moving into the SME market and trying to help them on their marketing campaigns. So yeah, we're just trying to help businesses out. That's what we do. We're all kind of either business owners or ex-business owners, just trying to make a difference out there. It's a tough old place at the moment, running businesses. So yeah, give us a call or contact me.
Yeah. Are you finding there's a bit of a sense of optimism though, Clive, at the minute, where things are changing, or is it still challenging out there?
Well, one of the real challenges we're going to see is a lot of hospitality grants now. One of the problems that's being looked at is anyone that has to restock. Have they got the money to restock? Have they actually got the money to almost like restart their business? And this is going to be a big challenge for a lot of shops that rely on a lot of stock, bars, restaurants. Can they actually afford to restock? And there are still weekly bills that coming in, but sometimes you might not get paid on by weekly. So it's going to be a real struggle. But there are a lot of grants out there still, especially in hospitality. And going forward, there's going to be even more grants coming out. So if anyone is in that position, so give us a call. So we're all funded. We're all funded by the council and by Canary Wharf Group. So
great.
But I will put our details on here for anyone to contact us. All right.
Amazing. Thanks, Clive. Appreciate that. Andrew, talk to me about what's going on in your world business-wise.
Well, the fact of the budget is it extended the stamp duty holiday for another 3 months. So my residential property team, who were quite looking forward to having a quiet time, have now got another 3 months.
Yeah, that's not going to happen for a little while.
No. It's all well and good though, but I mean, it is. I'm of that age that I can remember what happened when Myrus went in 1988.
Yeah, like mortgage interest tax relief. Yeah.
And it was like a tap being turned off, and I have a horrible feeling that he's created an artificial bubble that might burst.
I mean, that's the challenge, isn't it? It's doing these short-term things to boost a particular marketplace. Potentially you could argue the same about grants. What's the longer-term impact of that? And are these markets sustainable over the longer term? I don't know.
No, and I don't think anybody knows, to be perfectly honest. We're in our financial year ends at the end of this month, and we've done a heck of a lot better than I think we thought we were going to do a year ago. But it's trying to plan for the next 12 months because, as I say, the SDLT holiday coming to an end at the end of June makes it difficult to plan for what's going to happen in residential property after that. And the trouble with this country is that the property market governs so much else. And with you've got your retailers potentially opening up again, but I'm not sure £6,000 is going to help a lot of people.
Yeah,
open up again.
Yeah, and again, it's that short. I mean, it might be a short-term impact, but the longer-term benefits of that 6K are different. The
longer-term benefits, I'm not so sure of. I think we're in for a slightly harder time because I don't think the full effects of Brexit have come through yet. And the effect that that's going to have on manufacturing and other people who have come through this reasonably well, I think. The ones who really suffered are the service sector, the hair salons, the hospitalities, retail.
Yeah. What's really interesting though, because I've got we've been running a series of webinars once a month with professional partners. So the first one we did was helping people navigate if they're in their mid-50s, thinking about what's next in their lives, because we've found that a lot of clients in 2020 have been thinking about how to financially plan for their future. And one of my clients, and again, we do it on a basis that it's sort of a marketing tool, a client acquisition tool, but it also helps support our existing clients, sort of develop knowledge to help them. And one of my existing clients came along, who runs an import-export business. And I hadn't been thinking about Brexit at all, because the pandemic was the big news of the day. And then he said his workload had increased significantly just because of the extra paperwork Brexit's caused. And because we don't have any, like in our business, it's not really impacted us. You forget that, don't you?
No,
Yeah.
we don't have an international element, so it doesn't really affect us. But you hear the horror stories of how much extra paperwork there is, and businesses have just decided, is it worth doing it, because it adds so much to the cost.
Yeah, absolutely right. Thanks, Andrew. I really appreciate that. And before we move on to Carol, just want to highlight one thing that Leslie mentioned before. What we're trying to do within the Havering Means business community is encourage collaboration. And I know that there's been loads and loads of collaboration going on. And I'm always certainly active in introducing people to other people where I think there might be a mutual benefit. So thank you to the legend that is Carol Hussey. That's a term that I don't use lightly. I probably do, but it definitely applies to Carol, for being actively involved in the Havering Means business community, and just working together and making sure that we're all benefiting. So, Carol, I've overpromised there. You better be good, Carol. How are you and how's business?
I don't know what to say. I think I know most of you. I'm Carol Hussey and I run door to door with my husband Martin. We live in Romford and we cover Romford and Hornchurch, and also a little bit further afield in the IG postcode direction. And we are leaflet distributors. So yeah, the alternative really to the online marketing, literally getting your physical leaflets through doors. I think I reported last week we had quite a few new post people starting as part of our plan to get everything in place so when everything opens up. So it's been a busy week of long Zoom calls explaining everything to people. So obviously it can't be done face to face at the moment, so holding things up in front of the camera and just really getting, we've done a few over the time, but yeah, it's been quite intensive. But yesterday, Tuesday and Wednesday, we got the trackers back from the new people. So it can always be a bit of a hairy one, because however much training we do, there's nothing like actually getting those people out there delivering and seeing how they've done. And they've all done really, really well. So it's absolutely fantastic to hear.
Talk to me a little bit about recruiting during the last year. How have you done that?
It's become really trendy, hasn't it? So that's a really good thing. Our ideal post people are older people. Quite a high percentage of our post people are over 55, and they're the people that we want because they take care. They're not really doing it for the money. They're doing it to get out and about and have a walk and give themselves something to do. And they're the ones that we can rely on. So it has been a case of sorting through. You know, you get a lot of younger people who think that they want to do it. And then, yeah, they go out there and they realise it is hard work. So it is a case of, yeah, chatting to a lot of people, finding out why they really want to do it, and then trying the right ones out. They don't all stick around, but I guess that's the same with any job. But yeah, most of them thankfully do. And out of all the new ones, yes, it's definitely a win for us. They've done really well, so we're very happy.
Great stuff. Thanks, Carol. Really appreciate that. Tracy, what's going on in your world business-wise?
I think a few things. First thing, children are going back on Monday. So I know I keep banging on about it, but oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Deep breath.
You know what? I mean, I think with our two, and it's weird. The closer it gets to them going back, the more I was actually grateful for them being around, because I was thinking the other day, I quite like my family, and I've really enjoyed spending time with them. But I think for their benefit as well, and the socialisation of being at school and at college, they need to get back now.
Yes, I completely agree. And for me, I think even if they were at home 2 days and we had them for 2 days and homeschooled for 2 days, but the rest of the time they're at school, that would be a better balance. But it's that constant trying to motivate. I think my children aren't too bad compared to some of what I hear on the mum's WhatsApp group of what's going on in their homes. So, you know, I don't think it's as bad for us, but it's for me personally wanting to have that mind and physical space with that constant telling what to do and that motivation. I need to motivate myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to be motivating them anymore.
Yeah. I mean, you're not alone. Definitely.
Yeah.
What's going on work-wise?
Yeah, so that's one big thing. Another big thing is, I think somebody mentioned, in terms of this whole change in attitude, and you can see the lightness coming back into people's minds and kind of planning for the future. So we've got some lead gen sites. One of them is a saxophonist for hire, and another one is an ice cream van for hire. So it's been really good to see people actually requesting their services. Some leads have started to come through because people are planning, and I mean it's very small still, but they're planning for their weddings and little parties and things come June. So that's been really good. And then the other thing that we've been doing, website health check, is another little service that we've been trying to develop and get a bit more traction on. We've had a few people come forward, which is excellent. So if anybody is interested in having us review their website, we look at things that are on page as well as the behind the scenes thing for a small fee to get your website ranking better. And we would offer you tips also about things that you can actually do for your website. So it's not a case of us trying to just get all the work. It is something, there are things that you'd be able to do yourself.
Yeah, and I know that you and Chris are really good at sharing practical tips. Being in a situation where it's very, very practical in terms of what you do. So thank you, Tracy, and let's move on to Gemma. Gemma, what's going on in your world work-wise?
Work-wise, past week has been finalising the business plan and application for my own franchise with WPA.
Yeah, your dad said actually. That's really exciting.
Excited.
How you feeling about it?
At the same time, no, I am excited. It's definitely, I mean, I've been doing it for 6.5 years, and it's going to be quite exciting to have my own kind of portfolio as well. So, I mean, we're still going to be working together. So it's all kind of just broadening where we can go and do the active networking.
Yeah.
I mean, at the same time, this week I've had a client call with a client that lives in Scotland. Where we're looking to insure him, his fiance, his mum, his dad, and he wants his girlfriend and his girlfriend's fiance on the policy as well. So it's one of those things, obviously in terms of sales, we can sell anywhere in the UK, but in terms of actually going out and actually promoting where we are, that's where obviously we're limited to our territories. So it's going to be quite exciting to get further out in terms of actually promoting.
What's the process of starting a new franchise? Is it quite a lot of work?
A lot of work. A lot of research into the areas that you've got. So I've done a 10-page business plan. I've got spreadsheets about projections, how I'm going to get my business. And then it's a 10-page application form as well that I've had to kind of work through, answer questions on why they should have me as a healthcare partner and not just an account manager. So yeah, it's a very long process. And then
you got there.
Well, yeah, finalisation date of the 25th of May. So we're getting there slowly but surely.
Good stuff. Yeah. It's funny. I mean, because we're directly authorised by the FCA, we don't use a network or franchise. But I've had to go through the process of getting Savello chartered over the last few weeks. Not easy, but certainly I'm hoping it will be worth it. But yeah, so well done on that, Gemma. Amazing news.
Thank you. We need to say a big thank you to Carol as well. She's been very patient with Dad. He's trying to sort some leaflets out, but obviously keep going backwards and forwards and throwing different ideas out there. But so Carol's doing amazing. So thank you, Carol. You've been really
amazing. Good. Great to hear. Andy, talk to me about your world.
First and foremost, I do want to say, Gemma, if you've been up since 4 a.m, I would love to look that sprightly. I really would. She looks fantastic for 4 o'clock in the morning. Chris, I'm really, really proud to say I've fallen in love with my work all over again. And I've never lost my passion in the first place. But for those of you, some of you I've met before and some of you don't know, I'm into my 10th year now of representing St Francis Hospice. When I came 10 years ago, it was an ambassador role that I did. And then I moved into community fundraising and was all over the communities that the hospice provide care for. But these last couple of years, it's been working with people like yourself, small to medium-sized businesses. And Chris, you used a word that's really important, collaboration. Collaboration is what I'm all about. And I think that, you know, during this last year, I've been furloughed for a lot of it. I've been working from home. I've felt quite detached from the work that I do. And the reason why I'm saying I've fallen in love with it all over again, just because of family bereavement within my own family, I've asked the hospice if I could come back and work actually at base. I needed to come out of the home environment. We've all done this working from home, but I needed to come away from that because of what we've been through. So I've been allowed for the last 2 weeks to go back to my offices at the hospice, and I've instantly felt so connected again to what I do. And it's really not difficult to find any motivation to do the work that I do. Now, what you're saying about collaboration, Chris, it's so important because there are so many businesses out there, like all of you, that think about doing something for a charity, and you think, oh, do you know, why do these charity members turn up at these networking meetings? I don't understand. It can be a magical partnership, and I've seen it with my own eyes. What happens is that you'll get somebody who's got a clothing range and they do an online thing, and they say, do you know what, we just want to do like, I don't know, 10% of what we do on our online thing, and we'll donate that to the hospice. But with us putting our name to it, what businesses are now realizing is that when you're an established organization of over 36 years, that carries reputation, it carries legacy.
Yeah.
So if your business wants to get involved with a reputation like that, it's a bit like a local skip company. I work with all sorts of businesses now, and a local skip company, every single one of us in the last 12 months have needed a skip, right? So you think, oh, who am I going to go with? Well, I work with a skip company that donate a very healthy amount of money to us because of the care they've had. So that's why they've chosen us. But on their website, on their social media platforms, when they say that they are proudly supporting St Francis Hospice, and when you as a customer are looking to hire a skip company and you're thinking, well, that company's got an association with St Francis Hospice. St Francis Hospice wouldn't dilly-dally with, you know, some fly-by-night, you know. And I think business-wise, it makes perfect sense. And this is why over the last couple of years, I've understood really this whole collaboration thing. And I think when we're working on campaigns, again, it doesn't matter whether you want to do it as an individual or whether you want to do it and get your company behind it. And so there are many, many, many ways that you can keep this hospice running, and it's so easy.
I think the other thing is, Andy, and as you know, I do a bit. I do my bit to support St Francis. You know, if you're lucky enough to be doing all right and doing well in business, I think you've got a bit of a moral obligation to give a bit back, haven't you? You know, for me, that's where it starts. You know, there might be a branding benefit and there might be some benefits to the business, but actually just that starting point of going, you're doing well, you should do a bit of good, I think is an interesting place to start, right?
And as a local business, Chris, this is key. We all sit in front of our televisions every night and watch an advert by a national charity, okay? Because it's speculate to accumulate, isn't it? They've got the finance to invest in an advert like that. But what somebody is spending on an advert that goes on to national television would probably keep our hospice running for a year. So when you are a local business, you know, invest in a local charity, because at some point, somebody that you know, 1 in 3 people will need that hospice. So if you as a business have just made a little contribution at some point, you've played your part in keeping that local service running. So it makes perfect sense for me to be here on a platform like this. Anybody that wants to speak with me at any time, I'm here.
Amazing, Andy. Thank you, mate. And thank you for supporting me. You know, you're one of our most popular podcasts we've ever published, and yeah, we really appreciate you being here, mate. Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Do you know what, Chris? I'll say this, and I think the group would agree. There's a kind of mutual respect between you and I. I'm very inspired by you. I think you're a great man, and I think you're a great man in this community. So I think that's something we have in common. We all try to do our best, don't we? That's all we're trying to do.
Yeah, 100%. And thank you for that compliment. But everybody else prepare to be underwhelmed, because I'm really not that good. Paul, so yeah, before I blush with embarrassment, Paul, save me, mate. Save me here.
Okay.
Tell us about you and your business.
Thank you. Well, thank you. And thank you, Chris, for inviting me. It's my first appearance here today. So I'm delighted to meet everyone, virtually, of course. Yeah, so my company is called Corporate Counsel. And basically it's a hybrid, really. It's a sort of, it's helping business owners that want to achieve their dreams, if you like. Now, I know at the moment everyone's a bit doom and gloom about business, but there are businesses that are actually, it's not what happens to you, it's how you react, isn't it, really, in life. So a lot of people are actually planning, what do I do when I come out of lockdown? And there are a lot of, obviously, businesses that have carried on, particularly digital ones, and tech companies. Although somebody said the other day, every business is a tech company these days, because they've got a website, they've got a digital strategy, and so forth. So in a way, that distinction is blurring a lot. So I come from a background where I had my own business, or two businesses, for about 10 years, which I then sold. So I went through the 7 ages of man, or 7 ages of starting, bootstrapping, and then selling a business. So it's very practical. I haven't, trained in any way apart from that. But it made me realize that, I made a lot of mistakes. We all do in business, and they're learning opportunities. So I've turned that into a sort of mixture of tools about helping people on how to grow their business from where they are to where they want to get to. And increasingly, I think people talked around age around here. There is an age point at which people think, actually, it may be time to actually think about, succession planning, exiting my business. And that's always quite difficult, because when you run a small business, it's your baby, is that you don't want to let go, whatever. So I do that as well, because if you don't do that, as I know, Chris, you would agree, if you don't plan your pension, it won't be big enough. So if you don't plan the sale, you could leave a lot of money on the table. And that's a big part of your assets, really, or it can be. So I help business owners, and I do it by often going into their premises. That's quite difficult at the moment, but still do a little bit of that as we come out, because that's the more practical way. So being with them maybe 2-3 days a week, saying, look, what do we need to do here? Is it putting a system in, sales and marketing, whatever? How can I stop you, worrying about this and actually worrying about doing?
So, Paul, I think the interesting thing is the conversations we've had in the past, because we've got coaches as part of the community, and coaches are designed to empower somebody to take the action they need in their own business. Your approach is slightly different, right?
Absolutely. And I don't really describe myself. I suppose part of what I do is coaching, but for me, it's coaches. I'm not decrying them at all. They do a very good job, but they tend to sort of come in, talk to you, give you some work to do, and then come back in 2 weeks to say, have you done your homework, sort of thing. But I don't think that's really fair on a business. They're very busy, whatever. They need the guidance. They need actual physical action. And, I can do it. I'll get things done. I've got enough grey hairs to have done most things in life. So they can trust me that if they want something done, they can get it done. And just currently, I'm working with quite a few early stage businesses, helping them to raise finance. And somebody mentioned earlier, I think, Jeremy, you mentioned about talking to somebody out in Scotland. I've got a client now from Denver in Colorado, which is quite fun. And I've never actually met them, but apart through Zoom. And it's great, and it works really well. And I'm representing them here over in Europe, and they've got a great product which is about it's for risk management, but it's like the risk management tool. It's global. It's like a Google tool. You can look at anything across the world. So if you're running a shipping company, you want to know where. I mean, would you believe that they're worried about piracy? So they want to know what's going on. You can actually zoom down with the satellites and see it's fascinating stuff.
Yeah,
so,
great stuff.
Things like that. So yes, that's the sort of thing I do. I'm very excited, and thank you again for inviting me. It's like a really lively bunch.
Thanks, Paul. Really appreciate that. Tony, I know you're presenting today, but before you present, do you want to do a little introduction?
Okay, yeah, thanks, Chris. So I'm Tony Barrett. I'm MD of Investor in Customers, and we work with organisations to really help them improve their customer experience and employee engagement strategies. And that runs from everything from surveys. We tend to try not to use the word survey because it pushes us down a route that we don't want to go down, but we do customer surveys through to full-blown assessments, not just looking at the customer experience, but also looking at the employee and where are the gaps between what do the senior management think they should be doing, what do the employees think they're doing, and what do the customers think they're receiving, and then help them close those gaps. And that can be training. We work with partners, and a lot of our business is built. We're only a small company, but we're very good at what we do, but we're very conscious of that we don't do everything. And so we work with partners to help on certain areas, particularly around some of the strategy work and some of the IT work. So currently we've got a big project on with Legal in General, another one with a charity called Together Trust, which is a business in the Northwest, which looks after autistic children, does residential care and support for autistic children. That as a business culture, we do it, or we do it at cost. Actually, we lose money on it, but we don't tell them that, but we sort of agreed to do that at cost. But we also we're working at the moment with a small boutique wealth management company and a small IT firm, which is it's an interesting one. It's one of those companies where started up 3 or 4 years ago, at which point the guys just started up, knew everybody, and now it's grown, and now it's like, so, well, actually we don't know half our customers now because we've got other people doing it. So, you know, can we do some work just to make sure that the ethos of the business and what we were sort of trying to achieve and what we believe in is still relevant, even though we're not the ones with the face-to-face contact.
It's maintaining that client connection, isn't it? You know, how do you when you grow, continue to develop really close relationships? And while you're, have you got the opportunity to share your screen, Tony? It's Russ giving you that already.
Yeah.
So the reason that I wanted Tony to come on is because, I mean, I've known Tony for, I don't know, 10 years now, Tony, I think it is. It's probably coming up to that.
Yeah, it must be at least.
Certainly one of the things we're looking at Savello at the minute is just improving the way that we engage with clients and customers, and looking at the opportunities we've got to do that. And I think one of the ways we're trying to do that is just to listen more and understand a bit more about how we understand our clients. And I don't know anybody better than Tony to share his expertise on how we do that. So Tony, over to you, mate. Please share what you know.
Okay, thank you. So good morning again, everyone. I hope you can all see the screen that says gaining a competitive advantage. So we talked about customer, we also talked about clients. One of the slight pains in my life is that some people have customers, some people have clients. Some of our customers actually have customers and clients, where they have a differentiate between the two. And certainly it's employees and staff. So we tend to talk about customers, but we're very careful when we're working with organisations to use the terminology that's relevant for them. So just to run through today about, you know, what is this thing about customer experience that a lot of people are talking about, but also a reality check, because I think it's one of those areas that's being a little bit overhyped at the moment. A lot of organisations are saying, "Oh, this is the new way of doing things," but actually, you know, there are some checks and balances. We've been going for 15 years, so just a couple of the lessons from that, and then really sort of what does good look like. Just a little bit about for us. So we help improve profitability through better customer experience, and that's really around looking at customer retention, customer acquisition, and also employee engagement. And I think one of the areas that we find in a lot of businesses, particularly smaller businesses, is they have the focus on some of the customer work, they focus on some of the employee work, but they don't necessarily join the gap. So the internal, the external doesn't always get aligned. So we work with them in terms of helping with those. We've talked to more than 3 million people in terms of getting their views, and we also have an award system where we have a gold, silver, or bronze award, and that, say, we work with more than 300 businesses on that. And what we do is our competitive advantage is we look at 4 key areas. How do you understand customer needs? How do you meet customer needs? And sometimes we'll find that actually you can get a higher score for meeting customer needs than you do for understanding them. And that's where you've got a product or service which is very much on the, it meets the mass market need, but it's not being personalised. It's not being, it doesn't feel, it's not the what's in it for me, as I think Leslie or Carol said earlier. What does that mean in terms of delighting customers rather than just merely satisfying them? Or what does that mean in terms of loyalty? And saying that we put together a comprehensive action plan in terms of where the gaps are and how to solve those, and also an award which can be used in marketing to show your customer centricity. I'm going to get too bogged down in terms of IIC, but happy to talk to anybody after that or after this or separately about what we do. So what's the fuss about? There's a lot of talk about the moment we are in the age of the customer. So if you go back the last 100 years, Henry Ford and mass production in the in the early 90s, and that was really sort of the way businesses focused for a long time. It was all around how can we automate more processes, how can we sort of develop more products. And then as the world became smaller in the 60s, and going through, it became a lot more about where's the global connectivity, transport, open borders. Notwithstanding Brexit, the EU obviously opened up lots of areas in Europe, but as did other trade deals. So then it became, well, how do we actually work with people outside of our own little environment? And then the internet revolution in the 90s, so that became very much in terms of, well, where's the information? People became much more switched on. They could get information much more readily, and a lot of the focus then was around building websites, was around how do we actually communicate with people. And now, really, from in the last sort of 8 years, we're in the world of the customer. And I think a lot of organisations are now looking at a lot of our products and services are fairly homogenous. There's not a huge amount of difference. Actually, the difference is how well do we treat our customers, and similarly, how well do we treat our staff and our employees in terms of making sure we're a good place to work. But I think one of the key areas there is the power balance has shifted. So customers are in control. They're better informed, they're more demanding, they're digitally connected, and they're able to switch. So I think one of the other areas there is that the distance is no object in terms of our competitors. So I have an IFA who's looking at me at the moment, happens to be local, happen to meet him on a regular basis, but actually I could have an IFA from anywhere from Land's End to John O'Groats these days. So, and a lot of organisations are saying, well, actually, you know, we can now expand much more in terms of where we're operating and what we're doing. And one of the areas there that, okay, I'll just move on, sorry, where they're looking at there is in terms of well, what's going to make that different? So I talk a lot about, you know, who do you compete with at the moment? And one of the questions in the days when I was sort of talking at conferences was getting people to put their hands up. You know, how many people compete with Amazon? And one of the, I mean, a lot of people say, oh, no, we don't compete with Amazon. Actually, everybody competes with Amazon and some of those companies these days because they're setting the expectation. Things like response times, just come up to Christmas, you know, I probably know our Amazon Prime and our local Hermes delivery person more than anybody else, because he knocks on my front door 3 times a day because my girls keep ordering stuff or then having stuff collected to take back. It's a totally different world to the days of, you know, sort of 28 days delivery. You know, people expect quicker times, and that, you know, in whatever business they're in, people want instant responses. They also want ease. Ease of doing business is one of the key areas that a lot of organizations focus on. If you don't make it easy for people to do business with you, they're going to move elsewhere. And also around multiple channels. So the big thing there is around, you know, giving people the opportunity to do business with you in the way they want to do business with you, rather than how you want to do business with them. And that is having an effective website. There's a lot of talk. I'm a little bit skeptical about chatbots and artificial intelligence at the moment. I think it works in some areas, but doesn't work in others. But people want to have access. You know, your customers are going to be doing business with you 24 hours a day now, 7 days a week, even if you're not there. So how do you actually make that easy? And how do you give them the options? I think one of the biggest frustrations we find from customers, particularly when we do work around digital transformation and how online experiences are, is I can never find a phone number. So if I get into difficulties, I can never actually find a call to make. And I think that's one of the key areas that, you know, you've got to give multiple channels. You've got to give people sort of more than one opportunity to make contact with you and do business with you. But the world has changed, and I think, you know, there's a view that the pandemic has accelerated the speed of change by 5 years. A lot of organisations were thinking about home working, was certainly thinking about video conferencing. I mean, it's been around for years, but it's never really taken off. And there's a lot of resistance. So, you know, I think there will be certain genies that are now out of the bottle that don't actually they get back put in. Doctors, very, very resistant in the past for any doctors to be doing online views. I think actually now going forward, even when, you know, we are allowed to get back in, I think we'll be in a situation where, you know, basic consultancies will be able to be done over the phone or over Zoom. I think a lot of businesses, I said, you know, other businesses Our business, I was spending, as I said earlier, probably 2-3 days a week out with clients, often up in the north, so spending time overnight, so going to meetings, trying to get some more meetings in there. I do all of those by Zoom now. And when we can get back to travel, I'll probably be more selective, and our clients will be more selective in terms of whether or not they actually wanted to come and meet them. And so there are organisations that have adapted well. Amazon, as I mentioned, they've just opened a shop in Ealing, which is now till-less. So it's totally on trust. You go in there, it's not even, you don't even have to scan anything, just pick it up, put it in the basket, and you get automatically charged for it. Aviva is an interesting one. Amanda Blanc at Aviva has come out this week with an announcement that they're going to look for only policies and investments that are sustainable. So a lot of talk about the ESG, environmental measures, and that's a big issue at the moment in financial services, we're finding, because they found that their customers are demanding that they want their investments to go into sustainable products. So they have to follow that. Deliveroo's changed the world of some of the sort of takeaway side. I won't go through all of these, sort of the fairly obvious, but just a couple. Qantas, what do you do with a fleet of airlines when nobody's allowed to travel? They've actually started sightseeing tours. So you actually have a 2-hour flight in Australia where they go, and it's actually, you take off and land at the same airport, but they do, and they say low level, but obviously sort of within reason, but they'll actually do trips around. So they do, sort of 2-hour opportunities to go and do some sightseeing. Mercedes-Benz are another one who are interesting in terms of, again, this is all based on what their customers want. Mercedes-Benz are trying at the moment a leasing scheme where you don't actually lease a specific car, you lease a Mercedes, and that Mercedes can be changed whenever you want. So it's picking up on the, a family, I've got 2 girls in their 20s, sometimes I need a 4x4. But other times I might want a sports car. So their leasing model that they're looking at is saying, okay, so on a Friday night or a Saturday morning, you can actually go and change the car from a 4x4 going away for the weekend. I can have a little sports car because I'm just going away, with my wife or whatever. Or actually, we're going to have a family trip down to the West Country, whatever. So we need a bigger car. So it's actually looking at that sort of, no longer are you restricted to one car, your lease will then cover any cars you want. And it's that type of flexibility. And that's really sort of looking at sort of what it is their customers want. If you'd asked me this 12 months ago, I'd have had these 3 companies as one of the exemplars of what they're really good at. John Lewis had a huge, fantastic reputation for customer service and really working with employees. That's diminished. Virgin Atlantic had some very, very bad press in terms of looking for government bailouts. First Direct, still good, it's a reasonable service, but they're being taken over. They're being caught up by other organisations. Now, I don't think any of those brands are particularly in trouble, but they could quite easily go the way of Thomas Cook, Woolworths, Kodak, Blockbuster, a whole host of other organisations who they failed to understand what it was their customers wanted, and they thought they could carry on doing what they'd always done. And obviously, we know where they are now because they're nowhere. So we have an area we talk about in terms of, we don't satisfy customers, we delight them. And some of the areas we've looked at. So what is it? What's the difference between customer service and customer experience for a start? So it's focusing on the overall experience. So that's before the customer even comes near you. What's the, in terms of your online presence, in terms of your advertising, in terms of your way, what is it you're trying to say about the organization? What is it in terms of focusing on the customer? Where's in it? Why should I spend my money with you rather than somebody else? Key thing is then what happens during that transaction, but it's also what happens after it. And I think a lot of organisations and some of the poor scores that we get when we measure this is fine. It was great up until the point of sale, but the minute we made the sale, then they forgot about us. They moved on to somebody else, and it's that whole experience is around the before, during, and after. And some of the things that really means is be transparent, be very open up front, manage those expectations in terms of what do people expect. I mean, Chris will know from the financial services and particularly from the IFA side, there's been a lot of talk around transparency. That's mainly around fees, but it's also about the types of service, and that's also about what you can do and what you can't do. Personalizing the proposition as much as possible in terms of how do I make it fit if it's designed for me? We all know that, you know, the vast majority of products and services, it's a bit like an iceberg. The sort of, you know, 95% of it's underwater. That's going to be the same for everybody. What's that 5% that's visible that's really going to make it different, to make it feel as if it's for me? Anticipate needs, we talk about a lot, and that tends to be the weakest element for most of the organizations we work with. And that's people who are looking at saying, well, actually, you know, as a customer, I don't know what I don't know. You know, can you help me? Can you actually look and, you know, what is it that I might also need? You know, just look beyond the sort of the face-to-face area. We talked about managing expectations, but it's also, you know, important in terms of exceeding expectations, and really over delivering wherever you can. Keeping promises, again, one of the most regular areas we get in terms of poor customer satisfaction is where people don't do the things they say they're going to do, and also in terms of maintaining contact. So it's that, you know, how do you keep in touch with people, and even if it's on a transactional basis, how do you do that? Now, a lot of that sometimes is finding ways of, you know, how do we find things? So we work with insurance companies a lot. Typically, their interaction with the customer is a once-a-year renewal. But what can they do during the course of that year to start thinking about other things? There's a strong commercial case. I don't want to get too much into terms of numbers, but, you know, there is very clear evidence that, you know, if you do delight customers, they're going to stay with you longer, but also they're going to be less price sensitive. So it's not an excuse to rip them off, but they are going to be with you for longer. They're going to become less expensive to maintain because they don't do too many, well, they're not going to complain, but also they're an open market. It's pushing an open door in terms of being receptive to additional services, and they're also recommended. We do a lot with Net Promoter. Net Promoter, everyone would have had how likely are you to recommend this business to others, which is around Net Promoter. I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But again, you know, they are going to be out there to recommend you to other people. And conversely, if you're bad, they'll be telling other people not to come with you. And they'll also put up with occasional errors. That's not to encourage people to make errors, but they will be forgiving. They see it as being a partnership. If they're delighted, they actually want you to succeed, and therefore, they help you with that. But of course, if they're unhappy, they're receptive to switching. And one of the things we found is that customers will switch pretty much on a whim these days. You know, there is limited loyalty. Certain areas where people sort of stay for other reasons, but they tend to go, you know, within a year of first coming in contact with you, they'd be looking at other things. Unhappy customers are more expensive to maintain because they take up a lot of management or customer time or staff time in terms of dealing with their issues. They won't even think about anything else if they're unhappy, and they're more likely to badmouth your business to others. And to say they're going to complain at every opportunity. So obviously, you know, from a commercial case, there's a lot of talk about ROI, and there's a number of things. I'm more than happy to share those, you know, some of the ROI stats in terms of theirs, but some of these are slightly exaggerated, and some of them sort of like designed by consultants to sell particular services. So I take those with a little bit of a pinch of salt. It's a bit like the survey that came out this week from that somebody said that 85% of UK workers are desperate to get back into the office, and it turned out that was commissioned by the chairman of Canary Wharf Holdings, who, you know, presumably wants everybody to come back into not just his offices, but also to spend money in the shops in Canary Wharf. So, but there is a reality check with this. So, you know, whilst we focus on the customer, we really want to make sure that customers are treated fairly and looked after at every opportunity. Finding out and actually asking them is a key. So we've been going for 15 years. 70% of managers and employees rate the customer experience they provide higher than their customers do. So in all of the work we've done for sort of 300 plus companies, the vast majority of those, their managers think they're doing a far better job than they actually are. And they also think their employee engagement is far better than it actually is. You know, there is a little bit of delusion within these areas, and that's often they don't ask, or they actually do some work themselves. They do some internal surveys or do some internal assessments, and they hear what they want to hear effectively. So, you know, that independent verification, looking at sort of, well, actually what's really behind this, and how does that go, even if it's a good score, it may not be that good. How does it compare to other people? So having that independent analysis and the verification is one of the areas that people really need to look at. But there's also some of the areas about in terms of the customer. It was Mr. Selfridge back in the day who came out with the customer is always right. I tend not to agree with that, because actually we all know the customer isn't always right. You know, the customer is entitled to their opinion, and they should all be treated with respect. But actually, it doesn't mean that you've got to give in to every request they have in terms of bending over backwards. You know, what are the financial implications? Sometimes actually it is better to say no politely and professionally. What's the impact on other customers and employees? One of the things we often talk about when we're developing customer experience strategies for firms is, okay, so do we have A, B, and C customers? Yes, every business has got A, B, and C customers. They're the ones who are worth more in terms of the value. But actually, think about the impact. So we work with organisations. We work with a large manufacturing company, and one of the areas they have is around stock control, and that's one of the problems. The temptation there is, well, actually, if we're running out of stock, we'll make sure we reserve the stock for our better customers. Well, that's fine, in terms of keeping those customers. But what's the impact on the other customers? Are they going to go elsewhere? So think about what can be done. Are some of their requests sustainable? So you do it once as a favour for somebody, but actually, can you keep on doing it? Because once you've done it once, they're going to want you to do it again and again. So can you? And is it even possible? And that's, we work in financial services quite a lot, and quite a lot of the regulated industries there. Actually, they get asked by their customers to do things that aren't possible. They're not actually not allowed to do it. One of those areas is for some of the organisations is around that sort of gap between advice and help, and particularly in some of the contact centres, people need to be very helpful. They're trying to be there, but actually they're not trained advisors, so they can't. There's a line which they cannot cross. And that can be very frustrating for the customer when the customer thinks, well, actually, you're not telling me what's going on. What do I need to do? And they can't cross that line in terms of giving advice. So it's really looking at some of the areas about how that can be done. And that's setting expectations up front quite a lot. And of course, the key one from a commercial point of view is, there's no point in having lots of customers if you're not actually making money. If you're losing money on all those customers, then what's the point? I mentioned earlier the regulatory reality, and most sectors have got regulation. Financial services is slightly stricter than others, but as I say, the regulator and the customer may have different requirements in terms of what they want. But I think there's also that area in terms of the customers don't know what they don't know. So it's actually, how can you help them? How can you really sort of guide them through some of the areas? And I know from some of the stuff that Chris does for me, he's very good in that respect in terms of explaining what can't be done and can be done. It might be wonderful for me to sort of, avoid paying as much tax as possible, but Chris as my advisor will sort of say, well, actually there are certain things you can't to get away from. So so I mentioned in terms of help and advice, but also it's the I think with the regulation reality, I think a lot of people get forced down that sort of, oh, we've got to do this because the regulator tells us. Actually, things like treating customer fairly, it may be a financial or an FCA sort of imperative, but actually you should treat customers fairly, whether the regulator tells you to do it or not. And one of the other areas there is saying no. Sometimes you always have to say no to customers, but actually it's no, but it's much better. So what are the alternatives? So can you do alternatives? Is there something else that could be done instead? If not, don't be afraid to walk away. If you can't do it, you're far more likely to get that customer back in the future if you're honest and open with them and say, well, actually, we don't do this, or even recommend a competitor and say, well, actually, we'd recommend you went to here. They're more likely to think well of you rather than trying to do something and put together something which then goes wrong, and then you'll never see them again, but also they tell other people about it. And one of the other areas there is around the, not everyone's the same. We talked about personalization. So when we do customer journey mapping for organizations, which is when customers start with the organization all the way through to staying with you and repeat business, actually look at the different types of persona. What are those different types of customer? I think somebody touched on it in the round robin earlier in terms of, you know, it's very important to understand sort of the different needs and what are the individual journeys, but what are the key touch points in terms of the moments of truth or the moments that matter, because we have lots of different touch points, but actually which are the really ones that are going to make a difference, and what are the emotions at that point. So, you know, we work with organizations in terms of emotional intelligence, and really understanding that, but also in terms of where's the collaboration within the different departments. There's no point work with IT companies, you know, there's no point the software people, the sales people selling something which, you know, the IT people can't deliver. So it's actually that sort of making sure there's the consistency and you get those handovers between the different teams and departments, so that you're not looking at sort of lots of different silos. And again, one of the frustrations that we find, and certainly from a personal point, I find is if you're talking to different teams, having to go through the same information. I understand that I might need to do a couple of security checks if it's in certain sectors, but do I really need to give them all of my details and actually go right the way back to square one to tell them everything again? Where is that handover and where's that internal communication? So in terms of the 15 years we've been in, some of the things we've picked up, customer loyalty isn't the same as retention. I think that's one of the strongest areas. I remember sitting in a boardroom in Nottingham with a software company that did payroll software, where we were giving them some fairly bad news in terms of the results, and the chairman was very much, no, we've got customers for years. We've got, you know, we've had all these customers. They must be happy. They've stayed with us a long time. And we then put together a program, and I actually did face-to-face interviews with a number of their clients. Every single one of them said the same thing. We are here because we just cannot, the thought of changing our payroll system is just so great that we can't actually, you know, we don't want to do it. We move away from this tomorrow. It doesn't work. We've got lots of workarounds. And that was really, they were sitting there and that's, you know, we've got lots of happy customers because they've been with us for a long time. Well, no, they're there because they can't go. Now that's changing in terms of obviously some of those areas. But again, don't get it, just because customers are with you doesn't necessarily mean that they're with you because you're actually sort of delighting them. It could be there because, you know, they don't see an alternative, or they're just inertia in some cases. Solving a customer's problem makes a real difference, especially when it isn't your fault. And that's an area, and I've talked about Pilkington. We work a lot with Pilkington Glass. So they're more than happy for me to talk about them, and because they've changed their business a lot in terms of focusing on the customer. And some of the work we did with them, where we looked at sort of, you know, what are the issues facing your business. A lot of that was around recycling. So obviously there's offcuts of glass. It was a real pain for their clients or their customers to actually sort of do that, because obviously it's commercial, got to pay for that. So they started for their certain clients, you know, they tested a pickup thing. So, you know, when they were delivering glass, but they were also picking up some of the offcuts, and that made a real difference in terms of loyalty, because whilst, you know, it then gave them a problem, they then had to get rid of it themselves. But it actually was a real service that drove loyalty. They weren't charging for that. They weren't, you know, it wasn't done on a, we've got to make some money out of this, but it was done in terms of, you know, our customers have got a problem. How can we help them? How can we make their lives easier? And in doing so, tie them into us. Little simple changes can make a big difference. And we worked with a client who, again, based on the feedback we got, that it was a distribution company, and they had a couple of satellite offices which shut at 5 o'clock. And the feedback there was you know, we're really annoyed that we can't get through to people after 5 o'clock. And so in the meeting, somebody came up with the idea, well, why don't we just get them to transfer their phones to head office, because the head office is open longer. So, you know, it was a 5-minute change, cost nothing, just to put a transfer on the phones, but it made a big difference in terms of actually the perception that the organisation was then open a lot longer and could deal with things. Customers often need more help and information. Again, with one of the insurance clients we work with, they specialised in insuring young drivers, and they had the issue of, you know, how do we actually sort of communicate with people between renewals? So they started doing every quarter. They'd do a particularly, you know, are you prepared for winter driving? You know, tips for winter driving, tips for summer driving. You know, tips but other things, not just around the whole driving experience, but just sort of some sort of information and some feedback there. And then on the employee side, we do find there's quite often we find that the issues that customers bring up are actually the same as the employees. The employees know what those issues are because they tell us about those as well. And that's really a question looking at, is that attitude of empowerment? So is that I know what the issue with that customer is. I could do something about it, but I choose not to because it's not my job. Or I can hide behind health and safety or GDPR or other regulations. Or is it empowerment where actually I really want to do something? I see they've got a problem. I want to help them. But if I do it, I don't think my boss is going to support me. And I don't feel I'm empowered to do that. So I'm taking a risk and, am I going to get help? So where are those areas? So what's the employee perspective within there? Just a couple of stats. So we work with a number of different types of organisations. It's just some of the areas there. Anticipate needs. We talked about in terms of, well, how do you actually do that? And sometimes that's simple. So a lot of that's the employee attitude. And in the days when we get out, I remember sitting in a hotel once in Leeds, and I went down to the bar, get something to eat, and walked up and sort of said, got myself a drink and said, oh, what time do you do do you carry on serving food until? And she said, oh, well, we take orders up until 9 o'clock. I think it's about 8 o'clock at the time. And I was like, okay, I had a drink, so I looked at the menu, went back and spoke to the same person about 20 minutes later and said, okay, can I order food? And immediately turned around and said, oh yes, we've had a few problems in the kitchen all evening. And so it's taking a lot longer now to order food than all the time it could take, sort of half an hour, 40-minute wait. And I just said to her, well, I had a conversation with you 15 minutes ago. Why didn't you tell me that then? Because I could have ordered then. And it's like, oh, I didn't think about that. You asked me how long we do food till, and that was it. So she knew there was a problem there. That again, not a great example in terms of anticipating needs, but it's just how do you think about what is the impact on the customer? Being easy to do business with is another area. That's an area actually we find that the travel organisations are really much better at that, and some of the advertising ones are better in terms of the areas. But this is an example again of an organisation that's less relevant now that everything gets paid by credit card. But I had an experience a few years ago when I was just coming down the motorway. I absolutely detest being short of petrol on a motorway and have to go and pay ridiculous motorway prices for petrol. So I pulled into the garage, it was pouring with rain, and I thought I don't want to put on the credit card, so I just put £10 in to get me home. And it hadn't realised I took £10 out of my wallet, walked in there, and it was £10 and a penny. And they said, oh no, it's £10. I said, look, I've got £10. I had to go back to the car, get my credit card, didn't have the change, come back. People were queuing up. Coincidentally, a week later, I was down in Devon, clients, and I walked in and it actually filled up the whole thing. But there was this there, and that was and I started talking to the guy about this, and it was purely at the initiative of the people there that they put they had what they called the change bot. So if somebody had gone over and it had gone slightly over and it was £10 and a penny or £10 and 5 pence, you could just give them the £10 and then pick that up. And that was funded by the customers. That was actually funded by people who changed. So that's a good idea. I've just put, I've got some change. I'll put it into there. They were raising over £1,000 a year for Devon Air Ambulance just by people doing this. They had a pot by the side of it, so people were putting other change in. And that was driven by the employees. That was just something that the employees did just because they realised that, it just made life easier for people. Treating customers fairly, again, very big in financial services. It's something that a lot of people to do. Again, more than happy to sort of explain and where some of the other services are, ones that get bogged down in numbers at this stage. But Granny Grey is something that Virgin Media use. So Granny Grey is actually it's fixed into all their vans. It's into all their customer ethos, and that's the a guy called Sean, who was their customer experience director. The philosophy: how do I get my teams to give a much better service? And his answer was, would you like your mum or your gran treated, or how would you like this? Somebody was coming round and we're doing this for your mum or your gran. How would you like them to be treated? And that became the whole thing about the Granny Grey. So the influence there was always about, would I want my mum to be treated in this way? No, actually I won't. I'll stop and now think about what I'm doing. And again, it's simple techniques in terms of helping organisations and just getting people to start thinking about it in terms of what they're doing with it with their customers. And we talked a little about Net Promoter and the willingness to recommend. Net Promoter is, as I say, it comes from some work done by a guy called Fred Reichout and Bain & Co in the United States. They looked at a whole number of different areas in terms of what actually drove loyalty, what made people find, and asked lots of different questions in terms of what was the overall satisfaction, how easy is it to do business with or whatever. And they found that recommending, so how likely are you to recommend? So it's getting a little bit overused at the moment. I think people are a little bit, I don't want to say fed up with it, but I think they're looking at, but it's that question, and but there are some things around that. So one is, that's fine. 9 to 10 is a promoter, so they're the people who you would be working with. So, well, actually, they're our most loyal customers. 7 and 8 are passive, so they're okay, but you're not wowing them. And 6 and below are the problems. Anybody who gives you a 6 or below on that should be phoned up, by somebody in the team. I do it, and with organisations who send me that question, quite often I'll even if I'm happy with them, might give them a lower score, never below a 6. But sometimes if they're bad, I'll give them a 1 or a 2, because actually, what are they doing with that? If you're finding the customers are unhappy with you, but you're doing nothing about it, don't be surprised when they walk away. But at the same time, just because you get lots of people who give you a 9 or a 10 doesn't mean they're your sales team. They're not out there promoting you the whole time. It's some organisations think, oh, it's great. We can build businesses around customer referrals. Well, you can, but it's very unlikely in that respect. So, and also, just because they say they'd like to do something and recommend you doesn't necessarily mean they're going to do it. But again, and this is not just around Net Promoter, but for all customer satisfaction metrics and scores. A score's just a number. It's meaningless unless you actually look for the detail. What does it mean to that? Also, how do you compare it to other people? So we do a lot of quantitative and qualitative questions. So a lot of that is in terms of, why did you answer the last questions you did? What is it we're doing right? Because unless you can understand the reasons for the scores, and that is as important to focus about what you do well as what you do badly. So getting lots of 9s and 10s is great for the ego, but actually why? Why am I getting those 9s and 10s? What is it I'm doing right? And actually, even if I'm doing it right, I'm getting good scores, how can I do it better? So looking at the reasons behind those scores and say following up on the dissatisfaction. And some of the areas there, it's also about sharing that information. And again, one of the areas we find with professional services, if we look at the internal, is be very wary about the gap between qualified and non-qualified staff. And that could be, whether it's in, the same, it could be in accountants, legals, but even in certain areas, there's people who quite often we find that a lot of discontent from employees, which feeds back to the customers in terms of the professional staff think they're the ones who can be doing, and the others are often seen as being sort of the automat. I have this issue. I'm a school governor and I'm a trustee of a number of schools in Essex, and one of the areas I have there is a lot of it around the teaching. Everyone talks about the teachers, but nobody ever talks about the support staff. And I say a lot, actually, the teachers do a fantastic job, but they wouldn't be able to do that job if they didn't have the support staff. So just because the teachers are on the front line and the teachers are sort of the qualified team, actually it's about the whole school. It's about thinking about all of the school and how all of that works, rather than just individual parts of it. So just conscious of the time. So in terms of gold, we have a gold, silver, or bronze standard in terms of what we do. Just a couple of areas there in terms of what is it that gets people to get our gold standard. Making it personal is the key thing, I would say. Tailor the service to meet individual needs wherever you can. Not always easy, but actually it's about perception as much as reality. So even if it's the same as somebody else might get, actually how do I make that? How do I make it feel welcome? Some of that can be done in terms of using names. I think one of the things that people really like, and so from a point of view, is actually having being a name and not a number. But also it's about that developing relationships. It's actually taking that time to develop those relations over time. but also it's about being consistent. There's no point, you don't just do it once in terms of, you know, trying to make a good impression. You've actually got to keep doing it and be consistent and make sure that everyone in the organization is doing the same. Managing expectations is one of the key areas there in terms of over delivering rather than over promising, and that's really some of the areas. We often find we work with one of the insurance companies we work with, does a lot around subsistence and subsidence, and Matt looks at one of the areas there is, you know, if you make a claim in that area, nothing is going to happen for 3 to 4 months because they need to measure it, they need to look at it. But so often, and when we work with this, you know, all customers were just saying, well, you know, nothing's happened because they weren't told up front, they weren't given the expectation. And I mentioned earlier about sort of, dealing with Amazon and people wanting things quickly. Actually, you know, that can't always be done. But if you tell them, you know, is it going to be done? Yeah, well, actually, it's going to take me 2 or 3 days to find out that information, but I'll call you back on Monday of next week. Now, obviously, the key thing is then making sure you do it, but actually setting an expectation. So I'm not expecting a call back that afternoon. Empowering staff to take ownership is one of the areas. One of the key drivers of customer satisfaction is first contact resolution. So, you know, organisations don't want to go around the house, or people don't want to go around the houses now. They really want to sort of try and get their problems solved as quickly as possible. Make sure that staff are empowered and actually put the people who can help in the positions where they can help. Quite often, sort of the experts and the people who can solve the problems are hidden at the back of the organisation. They've got to find sort of, you know, 2 or 3 calls before they actually get through to the person. Make those people more visible, and also look at the alternatives. Don't be afraid to discuss the alternatives. And then finally, it's recognising and sharing success and learning from failure. We talk a lot around the employee thing about it's about catching people doing things right and rewarding them, recognising them. Review good and bad projects. I've done a lot with lots of different organisations. My background is marketing and run lots of marketing campaigns. And actually, I now look back at some of the things I've done. We often have, you know, really look if something's gone badly. We spend a lot of time sort of looking into in detail. But if something went well, we thought, well, it went well. You know, let's move on to the next one. We never actually reviewed what was it that made it good, what was it that made that successful. How can we build on that? How can we share that? And again, sharing information around the organisations, or actually in groups like this, you know, we find with a lot of the network groups, a lot of organisations, actually, it's really helpful and really cathartic in terms of, sort of sharing information and being brave enough to share bad experiences as well, so other people don't learn from those mistakes, and actually talking about some of the issues that have, you know, one of the things we find is that, you know, it doesn't really matter whether we're working with a glass manufacturing business, a boutique wealth management business, an IT software company. Quite a lot of the issues they're having are the same in that business. So actually being prepared to share and being prepared to talk and look about those experiences, you know, bouncing ideas off other people in forums such as this one. So what is it that makes it customer experience effective and also internally? So very much it's around, you know, it's getting the right people to do the right thing at the right time. So actually, are the employees customer focused? Do they know what they're doing? Do they know what they can help? Can they do it? And can they do it at the right time in terms of the ensuring that you know, the customer is looked after at the time where they want to be looked after? So we look at 4 key areas, and again, it's more than happy to talk about our business, but you know, this is more about sort of the general customer experience type scenario. So we look at a delve, which is an annual deep dive of internal and external gaps. We look at regular time feedbacks. We work with people on sort of monthly work, but we also help design and develop the strategy and look at the training. And one of the areas that we often talk about in terms of the feedback is, you know, what's the cost of this? Can we do this ourselves? And one of my favourite quotes is from Arthur Nielsen, which is the price of light is less than the cost of darkness, which is, it may cost you a little bit to find out, but actually it's far better to know than not to know. But as I mentioned earlier, we're also very much in terms of, you know, we work with partners, we can't do everything ourselves. And one of the areas that we look at in terms of, it's not just how can we help people, so, you know, how can we help you or your customers, but how can you help our customers? So again, we partner with training companies, we partner with consultants, we partner with organizations, and often some of the issues that get thrown up, it could be around communication, it could be around other areas, and it's very much so well, actually, we don't do that, but we know somebody who can. So it's working with business partners who can actually come in and solve some of our customers' problems for them in a way. So if anybody will want a conversation about sort of looking at ways that we could collaborate, I think it was Andy who made the comment earlier about so collaboration is really important to the different businesses, and I think it's we are very much sort of the mindset of let's get the experts, let's get the best. If we can't do it ourselves, then the next best thing is to know somebody who can do it. So I've rushed through that fairly quickly. Thank you, Chris, for the opportunity. Sort of conscious of the fact that it's sort of now 9:40, people get on with their business day, but more than happy to take questions or sort of my details there. If anybody wanted to sort of contact me, either directly or through Chris, then more than happy to have a chat about really just sort of, what it can mean for your business. Just talking, just really, if you've got some customer feedback, what does that mean, and put it into context. More than happy to do that for you.
So thanks, Tony. That was really good. And there was so much good stuff there. We've already overrun by 10 minutes. But so what we'll do is we'll shelve questions for now. But if there's any questions, and particularly people watching live on the Facebook group, share them with the group. Email either Tony or I directly, and I'm sure we'll be happy to answer them. Tony, can you just stop sharing your screen for 2 seconds, please, mate? Yep. Is that right? So we've had a few people drop out because I didn't set expectations properly about the meeting. But what we normally do at the end of the people remaining on the call is just have a little round robin talking about wins of the week. And we'll start with Andy. Andy, what's gone really well in your week, mate?
I think, as I said earlier, because I've now been allowed back at base, and a lot of the people that I work with are now aware of this, I feel like I've moved from second to third gear, and I'm almost getting fourth already. So I really feel like I'm back in my stride. Which, but is that for me, change,
I mean, we're going back Monday back into the office. That change of environment does make a difference, doesn't
massively,
it?
Massively, hugely.
Yeah.
I've gone from being, listen, I'm the same as everybody else. I'm at home. I'm working from home. It's very, very hard to find that motivation and not be distracted. The fact that you can just go and put your washing on or something like that. We all do it, right? But at work, total focus. And my God, I felt like the machine that I used to be this week. So it's been great. Stuff. That's my win.
Amazing. Great to see you, mate. Really appreciate that. Carol, talk to me about what I know you're normally really good at wins of the week. So talk to me about what's gone on in your week that's gone well.
I'm not though, am I? Because I did it again. I said them in my first bit. I don't understand. It's every week I do this.
You're just so keen to share your wins.
But we have got other good stuff going on as well. Just so good to be getting back in touch with those customers, the hair, beauty, gyms, getting them ready to restart. We had a gym that was ready to go in January with a big campaign, or Romford, Hornchurch, Upminster. So yes, back in action with them again. So that's a win, right?
Amazing stuff. Big win. A big win. And Tony, talk to me a little bit about your win of the week.
Well, meeting your members would be the obvious one. Yeah. Actually, our big win of the week is we've launched our new website. Having worked on it for pretty much we started just before Christmas and then did a load of work over Christmas and then getting it into shape. So we launched that on Tuesday this week. So
amazing. So check out the website, and there will certainly be a couple of introductions that I'll want to make between you and my members that I'll get done today. So thank you everybody for watching this show, Havering Means Business Morning Commute. Thanks for everybody who got involved. Have a lovely Friday, and we'll see you next week where we've got the amazing Fiona Murperko presenting. Have a lovely day. See you later.
Thanks everyone.
Bye.
Cheers. See you everybody. Bye.